host of the Gridiron.
But amazingly as that is, this season actually could have been worse. If you think about it, actually could have been even more embarrassing. I mean, now just straight up play like this. I mean, this just epitomizes the whole Giants from 2012 on, right here. I mean, how often do you really see a guy, right, wide in the open, nobody within like 300 yards of him, just running, falls down? I mean, it's just an absolute freaking joke. Absolute joke. Basically, that's the Giants in a nutshell right there. But I mean, the season, not so much could have been worse, maybe more wins and losses, because, we certainly could have. There's quite a few games there we certainly could have won without question. I mean, the first game against the Commanders, if we had a kicker, I mean, how often does a team wind up going through a game really and don't have a kicker? Don't happen very often. Well, of course, that happened to the Giants this year. If we had a kicker, we probably might have won that game. So there was a lot of games we could have won. A lot more games we could have won. I'm just talking about this season actually could have been worse. Could have been meaning more embarrassing, right? I mean, it's obviously with the Saquon Barkley and all, but the first was the first game here, right, when he Nick Sirianni, right, went on I guess Nick was mic'd up, and he went there. He's talking to Saquon on the sideline, and said, I think he said it was like 13 yards away. I think it was from his all-time career best. I think it was, right. And I think Saquon didn't want nothing to do with it. Let me see. Let me just make sure here. I think that was the game. It was up here. But then the other one was too, is that what would have been obviously more embarrassing was the final game of the season, right? Because Saquon only needed so many. Hold on a second. I do apologize. Saquon only needed so many yards to there we are. Obviously to break Eric Dickerson's single season. See what it was here. Let me see in that box score. All right, where are we at here? All right, we got Saquon. Yeah. No, so he finished Saquon. He finished with 176 yards, which I guess was like 13 yards short. I think it was, or something like that, of his all-time best at that particular point in time. And Saquon, didn't want to, didn't go back in the game. I think it was he averaged. What the heck was it? He had what did he have? He had 17 carries for 176 yards. He averaged 10 yards a carry. Almost 10 and a half yards a carry against the Giants. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Unbelievable. So, if Saquon went back in the game, Saquon, his one game comeback at MetLife Stadium against the Giants could have had over 200 yards rushing against his former team. It was just running up, and it was just absolute total amount, but that didn't happen. I mean, as bad as it was, 170, average 70, he only carried the ball 17 times, and he got 176 yards. Average almost 10 and a half yards a carry. Unbelievable. Absolutely. Just a total embarrassment. But said Saquon, if he went back in the game, could have had over 200 yards against in his return to MetLife Stadium, right? When you know the Eagles were going to try to do as much as they could to possibly, get him as many yards as possible and this, that, and we couldn't stop him. Absolutely embarrassing. But as bad as the 176 yards was that he got, could have been even worse. He could have had over 200. I mean, right? But then the other thing is that, this, to me, this makes the most sense, but he was only so many yards short of Eric Dickerson's at the final game of the season, right? Would have been at home on grass against who else? The Giants, without Sexy Dexy. We were ripe for giving up, all kinds of rushing yards in that game. Final game of the season. But, Nick Sirianni, gave some of the guys, Saquon being one of them, because he had, oh my God. How many carries did he have in a season? What did he have here? Say 345 carries. He never even had 300 with the Giants. He had 345. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. So he had 345, and what do you have here? 43 targets, 33 receptions. So he had almost 380 touches. Wow. And that doesn't even include the playoffs. So he had over 400 touches. Wow. Heck, he might have had even 500 touches. Wow. 450 touches? Wow. Dang. That's a lot. That's wear and tear on the body. But anyway, said the final game of the season, right? And as I said, Sirianni wanted to rest some of his players, and Saquon was one of them. 345 touches in 16 games. The guy has 645 carries. That doesn't include his 33 receptions. 345. Wow. That's a lot. A lot of wear and tear on his body. So anyway, but, without question, if he put the starters in there against our defense in that game, man, we would have been just totally annihilated. Totally. Saquon could have easily gotten 200 yards rushing in that game. Not only would he have broken Eric Dickerson's record, he would have blown it out of the water. He might have had 2,200 yards, over 2,200 yards rushing. By the end of he would have, embarrassing that would have been. It's hard. It's unbelievably embarrassing as it is right now, what happened. But it could have been even worse. The two games against the Giants, the one he could have had over 200 yards rushing in the return to MetLife Stadium, and then the final game of the season against his former team, he could have totally obliterated Eric Dickerson's single season rushing record, blown it out of the water. Now, he would have blown it out of the water, but would always had the little asterisks there, because he would have played in 17 games. Eric Dickerson only did it in 16. So Eric Dickerson still 16-game schedule, right? Still has the record without question. But to me, it'll always be the Juice, baby, right? Because the Juice had over 2,000 yards in only 14 games. So I don't care what Saquon does. I don't care what Eric Dickerson did. Care less. I don't. I think the Juice is an absolute. He's gone, but he was an absolute piece of human trash. But he did it in 14 games, and to me, that'll always be the record, without question. The tackling rules that they had back then, and stuff like that. stuff they don't have nowadays and all that, the pansy league that it is nowadays compared to the way it was back then, the juice, it will always reign supreme, in my opinion anyway. But I mean, as bad as it was, this season could have been absolutely more embarrassing for the New York Giants. Is that's possible? As I say, could you literally imagine, right? If Saquon Barkley, blew away Eric Dickerson's single season rushing mark, and he did it against the Giants in the final game of the season. I mean, how unbelievable. And if the Eagles put all the players out there and they just kept grinding the ball with Saquon, he could easily, I'm sure, had 200 yards rushing. Easily. Without question. So, as bad as embarrassing as last season was for the New York Giants, still could have been even worse.